Hello everyone and welcome back. After showcasing my Beatles in Mono alternate collection from Japan from the early 1980s, and after doing that unsealing of one of the Beatles compilations from 1982, that German pressing of real music, I said that I was going to do a video about Japanese pressings of the Beatles and about certain compilations that the Beatles put out, especially in the 70s and 80s. And today is the day when we are combining those two elements. I will also cover a little bit about how these Japanese pressings sound to me, because there is this almost generalized now preconceived idea that Japanese pressings of various albums, but in this case especially the Beatles, will sound very different from their original, let's say, UK counterparts, and generally from other versions of those albums and compilations, because it seems that in a lot of cases when remastering or mastering these records in Japan, they tend to cut some of the bass, some of the low end, maybe boost some of the high end, and they would make these sound kind of overly bright. We will see if that is the case. Also, I want to, and I will touch a little bit upon the concept of cash grabs, because I mentioned that in the last video with reference to some of these Beatles compilations from the 70s and 80s, and I had some reactions to it, and then I saw online that there were similar reactions elsewhere, so we're going to touch upon that as well. So if you're curious to see what compilations we have for you today, how they look, and especially how they sound, stick around. Okay, so before we start proper, I just want to get one thing out of the way, which is to address this concept of cash grab, which I kind of in passing referenced when I was unsealing the Real Love compilation, but I also saw a lot of reactions online, and there was one reaction to my video as well, saying that this, the referencing of this concept or just using these words cash grab does not really make sense. It's kind of a stupid term that has caught on. I tend to disagree with that. So I do understand, because the argument that most people who dismiss this idea of a cash grab are using is are along the lines of, companies. These are all companies that are putting out these records, these products, these media products, whether it was vinyl or cassettes in the 70s and 80s, whether it was CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, and what have you, in the 90s, 2000s, and so on. That they are companies who are trying to make money and to make profit, and they have these media products that they can put out, so they will obviously do that to keep the company going, or sometimes to make the company and the shareholders, if that's the case, richer, obviously. So there's nothing wrong with that inherently. The idea of a cash grab in the context of Beatles, or not Beatles, but just like in this case music releases on vinyl or elsewhere, and these compilations that have been churned out in the 70s and 80s. In the end, I think it kind of refers to the fact that when you are putting out a product, like the Beatles had put out albums and some compilations as well, and I don't know, soundtrack albums and so on and so forth, that they did make sense because they were putting out kind of new music or new versions of their songs, not all the time, but most of the time, right? They still had some fillers here and there, right? They had in '66 a collection of oldies, which was mostly songs that were already on albums, with small variations here and there. So they had that as well when they were going together as a group, and there were compilations, and individual compilations of McCartney and Harrison being put out as well. So fine. I mean, this is understood that the companies need to make money. The idea of a cash grab essentially is when these companies are putting out products that bring absolutely nothing new to the table, and they are labeling them as new products, but in fact they are giving the public the exact same thing that they received before. Not a new mix, not a new song, nothing that I haven't seen before or heard before in the exact same way, but just package it a little bit differently. So that's kind of the idea, and to me that kind of stands, because in the end those products have no reason, no cultural, let's say, or artistic reason to exist other than making money. an album that the Beatles put out in the 60s, for instance, or an album that McCartney has put out in the 70s or 80s or whatever, if it was a new album especially, or even if it was a compilation that was compiling certain things that weren't released before, it did make sense, because artistically you are also expressing yourself, right? You are putting out something new, you've produced something new, you've worked on it. Sometimes these products are helpful because they can help certain companies in this area of music production or artistic production survive, because if there's no new products coming in, or completely new products that attract the public, they need to put something out to keep things going. And sometimes these compilations probably help. But let's be honest, in most cases, that is not the purpose why they are put out. And it's true that some of these compilations, so especially the Red and the Blue albums, because they were the first actually major compilation of across the Beatles catalog, and official one at least, you know, they made sense, and they actually make sense even decades later, because they brought on a lot of new fans to the Beatles and to the Beatles music. So in some cases, if some fans were brought in to like the Beatles music because they listened to love songs, perfect. It means that that compilation served more of a purpose than just, you know, a quick way to make some extra money on something that was already sold and resold, and was still being sold through albums, and through the Red and Blue albums, by the way, to the public massively. Okay, so rant about cash grabs is over now. I mean, we can have this conversation, we can disagree, that's fine, but I think that there is, you know, the label of cash grab can sometimes be put on certain products more than it can be on others. Like, others maybe have a reason to exist artistically or even culturally, but in some cases it is clear to me that some things were put out just because they needed to try and milk some more money off a name, of a brand, of a franchise, and something like that. Now, let's move on to the Japanese pressings that I said we're going to talk about. So, I'm going to say something right off the bat, which is that I had this feedback, you know, trying to study the market and read a lot of the forum posts for the past 10, 20 years on Beatles pressings, especially in this case. You know, I've spent countless hours going through discussions on the Steve Hoffman forums with regards not only to Japanese pressings, but like Beatles pressings in general, because I'm looking for other pieces for my collection. And then on Discogs as well, on a lot of the reviews for a lot of pressings, seen a lot of videos online of many YouTubers or people who are actually more in the collecting or vinyl sale business, which have obviously a lot of experience, put out a lot of opinions when it comes to how vinyl from Japan sounds. And there are these elements which seem to be recognized by everybody, and they're repeated over and over again. Clearly something that everybody is agreeing upon, which is that the Japanese pressings usually come on very good quality vinyl, that they are very clean, that they were kept very well, many of them, that the packaging is superior to a lot of these issues of the albums or reissues from other countries. You know, better quality cardboard, the extras that you get, better inner sleeves, the OB strip, you know, the inner sheets that have lyrics on them and the information. So it's clear that from that perspective, everybody seems to agree. You know, it seems that Japan has done a very good job at producing these albums for their market, but then they can be appreciated in that sense by everybody in the world. When it comes to the sound, however, there is also, like I mentioned in the beginning, this generalized idea that the Japanese pressings of a lot of albums, and in this case we're going to refer to Beatles, are heavily modified versus their original mastering or their original master tapes, their original recordings. And when you compare them to something that, like some pressings which are more or less the holy grail for certain albums, the ones from the UK or some from Germany, for instance, there are significant differences which are in favor of the UK and German pressings in that case, and less in favor of the Japanese ones, talking about how they sound extra thin, that they are, you know, Japanese are cutting some of the low end, the bass is low, and that they're boosted on the high end, maybe on the mid frequencies as well. So they kind of sound extra bright, as people say. So generally speaking, that might be true. It was not necessarily my experience with the Japanese pressings that I have, but it's true that I have sort of curated the ones that I bought. So I didn't buy collections and waves of Japanese pressings. Most of the Beatles stereo albums, which were pressed and repressed and reissued in Japan a few times and in great numbers, I never bought. I never listened to them. So if those are the ones which are in majority very bright sounding, then maybe they are. I have never heard them, so I cannot speak to that. But what I can speak to is the mono albums from the 80s, which sound absolutely excellent. I don't feel like they cut anything to that extent. And the compilations that we're going to see today are a bit of a mixed bag. But for some of them, I had received some feedbacks before buying them that were contradictory. And then when I bought them, I saw what the reality was. Before we start with the Japanese ones, or actually, you know, some of the compilations that I'm going to show you today are not all from Japan. So first of all, just want to refer back to this one that I unsealed last time on the channel, which is the 1982 German pressing on Odeon label of Real Music, which is the compilation of songs from the Beatles movies. This one you saw last time, so if you want to see the unboxing, I'm going to link it below in this video's description. Aside from some of the things that I found inside, which is the inner sheet being crumpled, and then we have this cut here, this seam split here on the front cover, and also here, I think. It overall looks good, and the record, after I cleaned it properly, it sounded even better. It sounded really clean, so I was kind of surprised, and somebody also mentioned in my comments that it's kind of the worst sealed record that they have seen, and I might agree. It's 40 years old, let's think about that. Who knows where it has been stored. There was also some people who suggested that that might not have been sealed, but actually resealed by somebody. That might be true, because on the back, as you saw in the unsealing video, where the stretch wrap was coming together, it sort of had a portion where a stretch wrap overlapped with itself. So it is possible that it was actually resealed by somebody. I don't know. I bought it as sealed off the internet, and I really didn't think to ask for a picture of the back to see that that might be the case. And even if I would have seen it, I don't know if it would have really caught my attention. Maybe it would have, but not having so many products from like the 70s and 80s to unseal, or having seen them when they were out, I might have just thought, maybe that's how they were sealing stuff in Germany in the early 80s. So, it's possible that it was resealed by somebody at a certain point, whatever. What is important for me, it was that the sound is good. So that's kind of the most important thing for me when I'm buying records. Sometimes I'm really a stickler for the quality and state of the outer sleeve and other things, but to me, sound is the most important part. So for that one, I'm happy with this pressing. Now, before we move on to the Japanese stuff, I want to refer to another pressing which is not from Japan. But because we are talking about bright sounding pressings of Beatles albums, this is a DMM pressing of Past Masters Volumes 1 and 2 from Germany from 1988. So it's one of the first pressings that were put out there, and it's a DMM one. It's one that has the Parlophone logo here below, instead of the Apple. So it's a very early pressing. I saw it also referenced on the Parallelogram Auctions website. It was sold there a while ago. I want to say I got this, and the condition of it is pretty good. I think I would say that the cover is a very good plus, because here, for instance, it has a dent. So it's not quite perfect, but it looks really nice overall. The spine as well, looks pretty decent. Overall, it looks nice. It's a gatefold. Pretty nice looking one. So it's a nice looking album. The records are really clean. They were kept really well, and they sound clear and sort of without any surface noise or without any distortion or anything like that. But I have to say that to my ears, this pressing sounds thin, as people say. It seems to me like the low end was cut a little bit, or was at least affected by how this was mastered and pressed. So I'm curious about this one, by the way. If you guys have a copy at home that is identical to this one, you've listened to it, do you feel the same? Do you feel like this is rather light when it comes to the sound. So I'm comparing it also to the 2012 issue that is based on the 2009 remasters. Obviously, that one is also digital. I think this one was as well. It's part of the collection that they put out starting '87, where they digitalized all of the catalog. So, but to me, that one sounds a little bit fuller and a little bit, or at least less bright than this one sounds. So I'm curious to see and to hear from you if you have this and if you manage to compare it. Maybe if the UK pressing, sounds better. Let me know. This one was said and was kind of reviewed to be one of the best sounding versions of this album from the late 80s. So I'm curious to see your opinion on this. Before we move on to the next ones, just to take a look at the record as well. I've also been told that people would like to see the records more, like in the mono video that I had, I showed just a couple of them because they were all looking kind of identical. So you can see probably this one looks really, really nice and clean. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautifully kept record, and it has this 2-box EMI Parlophone label with the DMM mentioned here on the right side, I think. Yeah, yep. Just wanted to say, because this one did not come on the Apple label, and as you probably know, the 2012 version has a double label. The one on the first disc is the original, or at least a reproduction of the original yellow and black Parlophone label, because it covers songs from the earlier period when that label was used in the records. And then we have the green Apple label on the second record, which is with the more later part of the Beatles' tenure as a group period. Now let's move on to the actual Japanese stuff. So for starters, we have these beautiful 1982 copies of the red and the blue albums, the 1962, 66, and 67 to 70 compilations. 1982 pressings on translucent red and translucent blue vinyl. Now, these ones I've seen a lot being sold on some auction websites, along with another set that was released on red and blue vinyl in Japan from 1978. The ones in 1978, I don't think they were on translucent vinyl, so the color of that vinyl might just be the regular red and blue. And I think also their labels are the regular Apple labels for these two compilations, the red and the blue compilation. But the one thing that struck me, because I wanted to get one of these sets, and the set in 78 tended to be a little bit cheaper. I'm not sure if it was because of the quality or if it was older a little bit. The problem is that for these two, I found quite a few sort of reviews of their sound and condition. But for the ones in 78, I didn't find any. And I didn't find anyone comparing these sets online, which I was partially surprised. But again, these were albums, these were compilations that were released so many times in so many countries that maybe it's understandable. But I would have thought that because these were the two main releases in colored vinyl in Japan for these two compilations, I would find some comparison somewhere. But I didn't. So then I was trying to ask questions online about them. And this goes again to some of the, preconceived notions when it comes to Japanese pressings and of Beatles in particular. Because I've asked the question on Discogs, on the Steve Hoffman forums, on Reddit, wherever I could, where I thought maybe collectors would be, and maybe I have a chance of finding somebody who owns both that can make a brief comparison of these two versions. And I found nobody to answer the question. I did find some people trying to help out and say, listen, you can post here or post there, or maybe there were some people on Discogs who were very helpful. They were thinking, listen, go and ask some of the people who own both. So you can look in people's collections and see who owns both these sets, and maybe they can tell you. If you write them a private message, they'll tell you what they think about both. I did that, didn't get any answers, unfortunately. But what struck me was another thing, is I think on Reddit or somewhere, in one of the vinyl communities that exists there, I posed this question, and some of the answers were like, you probably shouldn't bother with these and just get like UK ones or whatever. And I was like, I already own versions that are fully analog and great quality. Like 2014 ones, to me, seemed like the most excellent options that you can find. That was also, you had a chance a few years ago when I got it to get it in pristine condition, like sometimes sealed, even like really sealed. But then, another user on Reddit just said, if you like overly bright vinyl pressings, then get these. And I was like, okay, what do you actually mean? Have you listened to these specifically? Do you have any of the versions? Do you have like somebody who has them and told you about it? And then the answer or the reaction was like, oh, I mean, if you want, why are you asking me? If you want bright vinyl, like something that sounds, with, this is kind of what he meant, with no low end, no bass, and very, stringent high notes, then get these. So one thing that I don't understand about people, and of course it's online, people say a lot of stuff, but there are conversations when it comes to the quality of a pressing in vinyl and also on CDs, if I'm thinking about it, that are useful to people, especially people who are not super experienced or haven't tried this for decades, because for newer collectors it's more difficult in all of this sea of pressings and huge prices and new versions that are digitalized and analog and all of that. It's difficult sometimes to navigate all of that, right? Because you didn't have the chance to go through different collections and different iterations, for decades. So these discussions that are happening online, where people who own a lot of variations or who have listened to some variations in their lives and chose some of them to keep, and people with like more recent collections as well, but that have gone through some experiences with this, it's helpful for other collectors, or especially new ones, to get an idea of what pressing to get from all of this sea of things. And so there are reactions of the type of, well, I don't like a specific pressing, I just don't like how it sounds, or I like one just because I like it. And that's fine, that's like opinion. I have plenty of those, so that's a fine answer to give somebody. You can say, I like it, without giving too much explanation. Sometimes you might not have a possibility to put your finger on exactly why you like one more than the other, or you dislike one. So that's fine. Then there are people who provide more detailed explanation, where they explain like, this one on certain song, it has distortion or whatever, right? They can find very specific reasons, and that's also, it's even more helpful because you can actually then verify, if you get those specific pressings that they're talking about, you can verify what they're saying, if you feel the same way or not, and so on. And then there are these kinds of answers, which is like, if you like overly bright vinyl, just get that one. And then when you ask for some explanations, for some, like, not evidence, but at least to confirm, for the person to confirm that they actually heard these, they just overgeneralized like this. And that one I don't think are really useful for any conversation. I think like people like that just tend to not really be helpful at all. And when you are posting something online, you're not just posting to boast that you are buying something, or you're not posting just to be stupid. Sometimes you're asking for genuine help, and there are these people who kind of intervene. And so when you have these kinds of preconceived notions that some people are pushing out in that way, it kind of makes you wonder whether indeed these are preconceived notions, and maybe they're not right in all cases. And so I got these, and they sound excellent. There is no point where I thought, this, they cut off the bass and this song, the drums sound wrong. They're just like the voice of whatever Beatle, it sounds too screechy. The guitars are burning my ears. No, these sound absolutely excellent. They are pressed very well. I mean, from the quality of the pressing and the packaging, that one I don't need to discuss. But the sound is excellent as well. So if you have a chance to get these, you can get them if you are on the fence. They are sounding really, really good. Now, just to take a look a little bit at them, these I managed to get in like real near mint, and it's the case for most Japanese things that I bought. So that's still good, that at least this preconceived notion is actually real. You can find them in really, really good quality. The covers are thick cardboard. They don't have any seam splits or any cuts or anything like that. The OB strips look excellent. The one in 78 has a half record here. You see this is like a full record, so this looks more like the 82 mono ones as well, which makes sense because they're from the same year. They have this stereo moniker in yellow here. Spines look excellent. This is the most difficult part for me to show actually in most videos because the camera will not always focus right. And it has these inner sleeves, which are general for these albums. They are, you know, in most editions. The newest ones, here I have to say that for the newest issues, which have the more thicker inner sleeves, sometimes they are semi-laminated, so to speak. I like those more. I don't keep the records in them so much, but I like those more because they seem to be more resistant. These ones are from very flimsy paper, so they can get ripped easily, but at least the ones that I got were kept in excellent shape. And then we have the records themselves. I've been told that I don't show enough records, so again, I'll try to show more this time. So these ones look almost identical with the mono records, like in terms of the label, the you know, design of the label is extremely similar, and you have this very beautiful translucent red vinyl on this EMI Odeon label. We also have the inner sheet with the lyrics and the details about the compilation, mostly in Japanese. This one looks good, like it's again no rips, no tears, but it does have some spots. I still like it though. I don't feel like they are bothering me that much. Then we have the blue album, also looking excellent, as you can see. The OB again is pretty well kept, as you can see. The back, by the way, here we have the EMI, and I think it's more visible on this one than it is on the red one. You have the EMI Odeon label and some text in Japanese. The inners are the same type of paper, this time in blue, but still kept really well. This one, I was told this by the seller, but I didn't mind. On the inside, more so than the red one, has some spots on the white parts. Again, I don't really mind. The rest of it looks absolutely excellent. And I also like when the spines are looking this good because, you know, they kind of look good in the shelf and you can properly read what's written on them. And let's also see one of these beautiful blue translucent records from this collection. Because of the nature of this color, this seems even more translucent than the red one. I mean, come on. If a record looks this good and sounds as these, trust me, sound, I don't know what's not to like. It's also interesting for me that in these, because they are so translucent, you can see very well from the other side the matrix number. This one is EX911. So yeah, red and the blue albums, 1982 Japan, translucent colored vinyl. I don't know how the 78 ones sound. If you have them in your collection, I would appreciate it very much if you tell me. If you have both, that's even better because you can do a comparison and you will be the first one to do it. But anyway, these sound excellent. I compared them a little bit to the 2014 ones that I have, and I can find no fault with them. I'm super happy to have them. Let's move on. I'm going to try to keep this as somewhat chronological for the rest of the compilations. This one is a collection of Beatles oldies. It was released, I think, in '66, if I remember correctly, in the UK. But this is the Japanese pressing from 1976, so it's like a sort of a 10-year anniversary of it. It is from the flag series that they put out, where you had the US, the UK, I think Japan and German pressings being put out. I don't know if there were others. On this OB, that looks, by the way, excellent, you can also see some of those collections. This seems to have been the 8th sort of album in the UK series. And you see the front cover looks really nice, the colors and everything. On the back, there are some spots and yellowing, which I think are almost inherent for this kind of time, this kind of record. Okay, just to show you the inner as well, pretty nice. And this one also, by the way, has the lyrics in English, not only in Japanese. And the record with the green apple, this is a lighter green apple. Okay, and the other side, I'll have to say, so I'll say it now so that I get it out of the way. All of these records which came to me that I bought from a seller which sells a lot of Japanese pressings, some of them were near mint, some of them were 80 plus. At least a couple of them, after I watched them, they're all near mint in terms of the record. So I see very little blemishes, scuffs, or scratches on them, almost at all. And I also have to look for them really hard to see them. But from the sound perspective, all sound clean as a new record. Some new records don't sound this clean. Now, talking about how this actually sounds, to me it sounded fine. At least the first side, I don't feel that Japanese high-end overpowering the low end or anything like that. I really feel like when you are listening to the older songs on here, like the She Loves You, From Me to You, Help, Michelle Yesterday, all of these sound really good. I couldn't feel that they had cut out bass or low end too much. Second side, they didn't really cut out that much of the bass, I think, but they do sound a little bit brighter, like they boosted a little bit the high end, especially Bad Boy. Now it's kind of a high-end song anyway, but Bad Boy, especially in the second part of it, sounds a little bit brighter, I have to say. So I'm curious if you have this version and you have the UK one as well, maybe, and you can compare whether you feel that too. Like the first side sounds a little bit, I hate using this word, warmer than the second side, or at least it's a little bit more rounded, the sound, and on the second side it seems like the high end is a little bit boosted. Maybe it's just me, but let me know if you have this and maybe you had a chance to compare it to another copy if you feel the same. The next one that we have is also from 1976, or rather it is actually from 1976 because a collection of all these is a 1966 compilation that I showed a release from 76 but this one is actually from that year. It is the Beatles Rock and Roll Music. Now, you may know that this was released in two ways, so it was also separate Rock and Roll Music Volume 1 and 2, but also as a gatefold, in this case, double LP. Now, why I like this one is because of how it looks, like the cover, because it is, as you probably, hopefully can see, this silver glossy type of cover, which is really uncommon, at least for the Beatles records that I have. I think this is the only one that has this kind of aspect to it. It looks really good. I think it's tougher to see on camera because of the light shining on it, but to me it looks quite good. It just has some ring wear here on the outer side. This was actually graded as very good plus, but I can tell you that even after washing the records, they kind of are near mint for me. This is the gatefold inner. Right, the spine looks decent as well, looks quite good. You have the track listing here on the back. There we go, and here. And at the bottom we have the produced by George Martin and some other details, as well as the made in Japan and so on. Okay, so you can actually see it. The record, this one I also like because it has this very specific label. It's a sort of blue on orange or blue on red label, EMI Odeon label, and I like the combination of those two colors and with this Coke glass on it. I'm curious, like I haven't really checked online. Do the UK or other pressings have the same special label? I kind of like it. I like the Beatles records which have like special or different labels than most of the, yellow and black parlophones or green apple, because I like those as well, but there are so many that have that same kind of label. And then the double box EMI parlophones as well, but I like the ones that have like special types of labels as well. This record looks really good, and both records actually do, and they sound quite good. So I tested these very specifically. I tested some of the songs on all of the records, on both of the records, on all of the sides, and compare them with counterparts from other compilations like the Past Masters from 2012 in some cases, because that one, and the records from 2012 generally are not known to have their bass cut off, actually on the contrary, even if they are digital, but just to compare, the preponderance of low end or high end sounds on them. But also, for instance, Twist and Shout, and I saw her standing there, I compared with two other variations from Please Please Me, one which should be one of the, It's considered to be one of the best, if not the best, stereo variation of Please Please Me, a German pressing. And then based on the D Beatles matrix as well. And then with the 2012, I compared it as well. I didn't compare it with the 80s UK, but it didn't seem that it was needed, because when I compared to at least to the other two, it didn't seem like this had any problem with the low end. I also compared other songs on it, like Drive My Car sounded really nice, and then I was also looking to the other songs on the second disc, especially the ones like Taxman and Back to the USSR from Revolver and the White Album respectively. Both again sounded punchy enough. Taxman I even compared with a version of Revolver in stereo that I have. So, you know, this one I cannot say that it has that Japanese cutoff of low end and you know, bass type of frequencies, and it didn't sound overly bright to me. Now, this one, as you've noticed, does not have the OB strip, which I'm not too bothered by. It would have been nice to have it, but it's okay. It is still from the Flag series, so it's number 10 in that series. But it did have a bunch of other extras, which are nice and special that I wanted to show. So first, they have this nice, huge poster of the Beatles with the flag of the UK. I'll try to open it up. And this was in excellent condition. Not sure how much you can see from it, but here they are, right? And then it has this very thick, significant booklet in. You can see it's not like a thin, you know, paper print insert like they have on most Japanese records with just the lyrics. And this one has like 24, 28 pages actually. And it's a beautiful booklet in itself. Some colored, stylized pictures of the Beatles. The lyrics, which are mostly in Japanese, I see, but also we have them in English here. Right? Let's see what else. Again, the pictures of the Beatles. And references to the other albums in the collection. So, yeah, pretty nice, thick booklet. Has some spots, but I kind of like it. It's a really nice extra to have. Now, whether this was a cash grab, yeah, probably it was. In the sense that I don't think anybody had asked for a compilation of this. I don't know how popular it was, to be honest. It's the Beatles, so probably sold fairly well. But yeah, and it also gave them courage because there are plenty more compilations coming out after that one. So it probably sold very well. But otherwise, yeah, I don't think anybody requested it, and I don't see people requesting reissues of it today, right? Moreover, it's not part of the catalog anymore of what they are reprinting or have reprinted in the past 20 years. So that should tell us a little bit about, you know, how well regarded this was. Overall, the songs sound pretty nice, and the record looks good. So, you know, if you're into the rock and roll part of the Beatles catalog, why not? Next one from 1977, and this one is one that I actually kind of like, is Love Songs. Now, this one, as you can see, is still part of the Flag series. You can see it here, but it does retain and very well reproduces the sort of faux leather finish of the cover with this gold picture of the Beatles, like the logo here for Love Songs. There is a variation with silver as well, which is also nice. I don't know if it's from Japan, but there's a variation out there with silver. And this one was the 31st record from the Flag series, as you can see. On the back, we have the track listing here. And if we open it up, inside I have the same picture, but this time full-blown in the gatefold, one of the nicest pictures that we have of the Beatles together, I think. Always kind of like this. For me, this is nice also because, and it's kind of important for my journey with this, with collecting, because I was collecting CDs up until a couple of years ago, right? And I went into a record shop, a small record shop, to buy some CDs, and I was looking at the time, I was looking for the versions of the Beatles albums from the late 80s, so the initial ones that were released on CD. And I found Please Please Me and With the Beatles, and they looked good at first glance. I didn't really check them properly. They seemed like they were some Japanese variations of those CDs from back then. while I was coming home, I checked them properly and I realized they were like some Russian bootlegs, or I don't know, Russian counterfeits. But anyway, when I was in the shop, I was also browsing around, and I saw some of the records that were there, like the vinyl records, and I saw some Beatles, and I just thought, let me look through them. Nothing looking across those really jumped in my eyes, but there was a copy of Love Songs from Bulgaria, actually, so it's from Balkaton as a label. It looked like they reproduced the cover pretty well, given that it was from a communist country in the late 80s. The records looked so-and-so. They were kind of dirty and scuffed a little bit, but I didn't know much about vinyl back then, so I just thought it was really cheap. I thought I would buy it, not to listen to it because I didn't have a record player, but I just wanted, like, I said, okay, let me just have this like a keepsake, right? A Beatles record, a vinyl record in my house, and it looked quite good with the gold reproduction here and everything. Then when I got a turntable a little bit later on, because that was kind of what got me started, then I started to look a little bit at records and then looking a little bit at record players, and I found one by mistake on a sales platform online, and it just kind of snowballed from there. But that record I sold because it really didn't sound that good. Maybe the pressings in it themselves sounded good enough, but that one proved to be quite used in the groove, so not great. But it was the first Beatles record on vinyl that I actually bought myself and had for a while at least, so it kind of was like a round trip for me having this as well. Now, this also comes with a set of extras on the inside, so aside from the nice looking cover and the OB strip and all of that, it came with this now usual inner leaflet. This one is a 8-page one. Some of them are 4 pages. It's not it doesn't have any staples on, and it doesn't seem like it ever had, so maybe it did, but this one, well, actually it doesn't look like it had staples because there's no holes, so it seems like it just came this way. So you have like a regular one with some description and lyrics for the songs included, the track listing and all of that. Let me see if we also have the lyrics in English. Nope, this one does not have anything in English, mostly Japanese, just the titles of the songs. And then on the back you have like a full picture of what was the huge catalog of Beatles records from Japan. But this comes again like rock and roll music with another extra, which is a pretty thick booklet. Let's see how many pages this one has. The pages are not numbered, unfortunately. I don't know how many they are, but it looks really nice. So this color is actually its original color. It's not browned by time or anything like that. And you will see that this is a very nice lyrics booklet, but it looks like a poetry book, sort of, the way that it is stylized and so on. I realized like this, I like the songs on this album, on this compilation, because I think I like it also because I do like a lot their more ballady type of songs, and there's a lot of them that I kind of liked since I was very young. And so when I was a teenager, maybe listening to the Beatles and some of the albums that I had in compilations that I had, I would have really appreciated this back then, like in the early 90s, because it's really nice looking, and I was into reading the lyrics and trying to understand what they were actually saying in all of the songs, right, when I was a kid. So yeah, I think this is a nice addition to this album. Another thing that I like is the record itself because of the label. Of course, again, this one, like all of the others that I got, looked excellent and clean when I got them. But this one I like especially, and I liked other variations of it that I saw online because of the label, because I do like this picture, and I like the way that they reproduced it here with a bicolor label with sort of this yellow goldish color and brown. So I do like this label as well. And listening to the songs, I listened to Michelle yesterday, She's Leaving Home, Something. There's quite a few that I've gone through, and I love her. And compared again with some of their variations from the Red and Blue album where they exist. She's Leaving Home, it's one of my favorite tracks, so I kind of know it very well. And so this sounds really very good to me. I find no flaw with it. Again, I don't find this sounds thin or anything like that. And I didn't even need to nudge my bass button on my bass knob on the amplifier, which I sometimes do for records which are not known to be overly thin, because that's how my system is. My amplifier is a little bit needs sometimes a little bit nudging in that area. But for this one, I didn't feel like it did. So it seemed like they reproduced the originals pretty well. But again, you guys let me know if you have copies from Japan and other copies from like the UK or other countries. How do they compare to you? So, Beatles Love Songs from 1977. Was this a cash grab? Probably. I mean, again, like with rock and roll music, I know who was asking for this compilation to happen. And there was kind of, I feel like these two compilations were kind of meant to mirror each other, or like to be two sides of the Beatles music, the more rocky one and the more mellow one, if you will. It seems like there's a part of it which is more experimental and say psychedelic type of music that is kind of missing from both. Maybe they should have built a compilation for that. I like it because I like the playlist of it, like the track list of it, but at the same time I see that wasn't too much point of it other than sell more records with the Beatles label on it. However, if we're talking about cash grabs, Love Songs is so and so, but I think the one which takes the cake to a certain extent with regards of the songs on Love Songs is this one, which is the Beatles Ballads from 1980. So 3 years later, they released this other compilation, which is basically mostly songs from Love Songs put on a single record, actually squeezed on a single record to a certain extent for some of them. Now, the release itself, so this one Japanese release is also from 1980, so it's an original release from the year of release of this compilation. I love how it looks. I love the cover. I think this was supposed to be used for the White Album, if I recall correctly. I love the sort of the atmosphere on this cover and the details that kind of lead towards, I don't know, it made me reminisce about Alice in Wonderland. But, you know, I don't know who needed this. Again, most of the songs on here are actually on Love Songs. It's like people who didn't want to buy Love Songs because it was two records and it was too expensive. I don't know. So I don't know who was this supposed to serve. But the presentation of this Japanese version is very nice. The cover looks perfect to me. Okay, the strip, the OB strip looks again perfect. Aside from here, it's like a little bit bent, but it's because of me, because I keep doing this. White here on the back, that's a little bit unusual. Most of them do have some like drawings or at least text on there, but this one doesn't. Okay, we also have the usual inner with details, lyrics of the songs. These ones also in English, not only in Japanese. And this one is actually an inner which looks absolutely perfect. Like many of the ones that I've showed you, even on perfect looking albums, did have like some spots here and there, or browning or yellowing. This has none of that. It looks new. Actually, the entire thing looks completely new. And okay, I know this is Japanese. They made good quality stuff. They kept it well, kept their records well, and made sure that they take care of them. But really, this is 45 years old. I don't think I can impress on you what a long period of time that is. And this looks absolutely new. And so does the record. Again, you're probably going to get used to it by now with this silver on black EMI Odeon label from the 80s. You saw it on the mono records. You saw it on the red and blue albums that I showed you just before. Looks great. This sounds pretty decent. I mean, there's not a flaw in terms of like being distorted or having groove wear or anything like that. It sounds clear and clean. However, this is one of the ones where it seems like for some songs at least, the low end has been a little bit reduced or cut off, and the high end sounds a little bit boosted, or at least it's more present in the mix that you are hearing, right, and in the mastering. But on the other hand, I'm wondering if this may not be due to the huge number of tracks that they have, because each side has 10 tracks, and I will show you, we'll have another one, the last one that we'll see today, gets even worse in that sense. So what I do know, and I know it also from the Beatles box from Liverpool that I have, where they have like 8-9 tracks, I think, on some of the sides, and which is not like really usual, because the Beatles records usually had like 7 tracks on each side for most of their UK albums, and even the red and the blue albums don't really go overboard. Now when they re-released the red and blue albums with the extended track list, they added another record to include the extended track. So, you know, but this one, maybe it's because of that some of these are, you know, seem to suffer from that, you know, Japanese touch when it comes to low and high end. But you let me know, again, if you have this in your collection, or actually if you have the UK one or other pressings, don't they also sound a little bit thinner, especially when they have like 10 tracks on the side? I don't know. Now the last one for today, as you probably, some of you have already foreseen, the Beatles 20 Greatest Hits. Again, I don't know who was asking for this. I think I read at a certain point what were the reasons behind this, or what was the context of it. But overall, if I'm thinking about it, I don't know who was this supposed to be useful for. It seems like the ballad seemed like a short version with some changes of Love Songs. This is like a short version of the Red and Blue albums, but Red and Blue albums together, right? They're more than 20 tracks, obviously, and they're spanned over 4 records. This one has 20 tracks. I feel like it's sort of covering as a lengthwise, sort of like 1.5 records from the Red and Blue albums, let's say. But all of these are all bundled up together on one record. There's 20 tracks on this, and that's not even the biggest problem. I will come back to the cover. I just want to show you the record first, actually. And again, we have the same label, right? EMI Odeon Silver on Black. Ignore the dust if you see it, because I brushed this before, but put it back in the sleeve, and just because of static it gathers some dust. But look at this. I mean, the record looks fine. It's super clean and super shiny. Well, it's now dusty, but it's clean from a perspective of dirt and stuff like that. It doesn't really have any. But just look at it. I mean, it has 12 tracks on that side. 12 tracks, that is double the number of tracks you would have seen, for instance, in a North America Capitol album of the Beatles. It's basically a full album on one side. So, you know, inherently it will sound lighter because they have to cut some frequencies to make room for all of this stuff on one side, right? So again, you tell me, if you have like the 20 greatest hits, whatever pressing you have, doesn't this sound lighter on the first side? I mean, I would be surprised if that's not the case. Obviously, it would be super helpful if you have both versions, Japan and another one, and you compare and you know. But yeah, to me, I'm not sure if this one sounds brighter because, or you know, with the low end cut a little bit and reduced because it's Japanese pressing and that's what they were doing, or in fact because, you know, it's 12 songs on one side. Otherwise, this was, I think, graded as a very good plus. With the cover, I do understand it has some creases up here. As you can see, you probably are able to see a little bit of the ring wear. It's actually visible on the back a little bit as well, right? But overall, it looks quite nice. And, you know, the spine, again, it's a little bit dirty, but looks good. It's not too creased. You can read very well the text on the spine. What I like about this one, for instance, regarding this Japanese version of it, obviously, is that the OB strip this time, as opposed to other times when the OB strip just covers part of the record, this one they kind of integrated into the front cover with the B here. I kind of like that. That's a nice touch. And it goes to show, like, even, you know, as they went on producing these records, the 60s, 70s, and then 80s, they still had a lot of attention to detail, and it seems like a lot of passion and interest to make a good product. So I really have to appreciate that, right? This is the back with the track listing, with the way too many tracks for one record. And we also have an inner, which is nice. This one is a simple one, like a classic one that they had, just 4 pages. Back and front, we just have the same picture or sort of collage of pictures of the Beatles. And then inside, obviously, again, the lyrics of the songs. This time in also... they're also in English and Japanese. That was the last one for today. Just want to mention that I do have a copy on cassette. I forget which country is it from. It's maybe a US cassette or UK cassette of 20 greatest hits. And that one sounds pretty nice. It sounds fuller in terms of the sound, like it's more rounded. But at the same time, the vinyl sounds cleaner, incidentally, because the cassette probably was played more. And, you know, the cassettes are also prone to get... damaged and to have distortion in time, but I think for the vinyl it's clear, or at least to me it seems clear, that the reason that it sounds a little bit thinner is not necessarily that it's a Japanese pressing, or at least in this case, but maybe because they crammed 12 tracks on one side. But you guys let me know. However, just to close for today, the Love Songs compilation is the one which out of all of these I like the best. I could have lived without it, but I kind of like it also because in my playlist that I'm creating on streaming, I do have a split of songs from the Beatles in different playlists. Some of them are related to the Red and Blue albums, which I completed with my own additional tracks. But I do have like a rock and roll, a more rocky, more active playlist of the Beatles songs, and I do have a more mellow one, a more ballady one. I think what was missing actually, again, from this, like they put out the rock and roll one, they put love songs. They probably should have followed up with a compilation of their more experimental and the psychedelic tracks. That would have made for like a full picture of their music if you want to split it that way and categorize it. Otherwise, I don't see the point of many of these, aside from them trying to make more money off of the same songs that were released and re-released before many times. However, if we leave this aside, and again, this sounds really good as a pressing and as Japanese pressings for sure, these are the ones which, if somebody would ask me, like a friend would ask me, and we're on the fence about buying them because they weren't sure, I would say go for it, and I'm pretty sure you'll have no regrets. Because these look excellent, they were kept very well, and sound excellent too. I find no fault to them. Comparing them at least to the 2014 ones that I have, they seem to, stand on their own. So yeah, I think this was kind of the highlight of this whole set of Japanese pressings of Beatles compilations. Well, that concludes the video for today. I want to thank everyone who is watching, but also especially thank people who have subscribed and people who leave comments. And I want to say that, and in the past year or so, I've learned a lot just from people posting in the comments of some of these videos. Some information, like some of the things they say, maybe I've read or seen before and I've forgotten or not. But a lot of the things are completely new to me, and some of them are really informative. I like the ones which are related to their own experience with the music, because that's what touches me the most. But also there's some, like I said, informative comments there that tell me things that I didn't realize, or that kind of fill gaps for me, which I really do appreciate. In closing, if you could like, share, subscribe, hype and all of those things, I would really appreciate it. Otherwise, I want to thank everyone for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time.